Marcus worked as a night security guard at minimum wage, barely making ends meet to support his sick mother. Every morning, he packed the same simple lunch: rice and beans. That was all he could afford after paying for his mother's medicine. One cold morning, he noticed a small boy sitting alone outside the building, looking at his lunch bag with hungry eyes. Without hesitation, Marcus gave his only meal to the child. 24 hours later, local news vans lined up outside the security post where Marcus worked. His simple act of kindness was about to change everything. Hi everyone, welcome to Mystic Tales. Today, I am excited to share a new story with you. Marcus arrived at his security post at 6 a.m., just like every morning. The early November air was cold, and he pulled his worn jacket closer. His security uniform had seen better days, but dry cleaning was a luxury he couldn't afford. He sat at his desk in the lobby, taking out his lunch bag. Inside was a simple meal of rice and beans he had cooked the night before. It was the same thing he packed every day. His mother's medical bills took most of his paycheck. "Good morning, Marcus," said Lisa from the cleaning staff. "How is your mother doing?" "She's getting by. The new medication is helping with her pain," Marcus said. "But the costs keep going up." Through the glass doors, Marcus noticed a young boy sitting on the bench outside. The child wore a thin jacket and kept looking at the ground. Marcus had seen him before, walking to school early in the mornings. The boy's stomach made a loud, growling sound that Marcus could hear even through the glass. The child wrapped his arms around himself, trying to quiet his hunger. Marcus looked at his lunch bag, then back at the boy. He thought about his own empty kitchen cabinets at home. But something in the child's eyes reminded him of harder times in his own childhood. He walked outside, carrying his lunch bag. "Hey there, are you okay?" The boy looked up nervously. "Yes, sir. Just waiting for school to open." "That's not for another 2 hours," Marcus said. "Where are your parents?" "Mom leaves early for work," the boy said softly. "The school bus doesn't come to our new apartment, so I have to walk. But if I leave later, I'll be late." Marcus noticed the boy's worn-out shoes and empty backpack. He held out his lunch bag. "Here, take this. It's not much, but it's warm." "I can't take your food, sir," the boy said. "Please, I insist. I'm Marcus. What's your name?" "Tommy," the boy said, carefully taking the bag. Across the street, a black Mercedes was parked. Its driver, wearing an expensive suit, watched the scene unfold with great interest. Marcus didn't notice him. He was too busy showing Tommy a warm spot in the lobby where he could eat. "You can sit here until school time," Marcus said. "I'll keep an eye on you." Tommy took small, careful bites of the food, savoring each one, his eyes lit up with gratitude. Marcus returned to his post, his own stomach growling. But the smile on Tommy's face made his hunger easier to bear. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness was about to change both their lives. The next morning, Marcus walked to work as usual. His stomach felt empty after skipping dinner the night before. His mother's new prescription had cost more than expected. As he approached his building, he noticed several news vans parked outside. A small crowd had gathered near his security post. "There he is," someone called out. A reporter stepped forward with a microphone. "Are you Marcus, the security guard who gave your lunch to a young boy yesterday?" Marcus stopped, confused. "How do you know about that?" "Mr. Thomas recorded the whole thing," the reporter said, pointing to the well-dressed man from the Mercedes. "He owns the restaurant chain across the street. The video went viral last night." Mr. Thomas walked over to Marcus. I was having breakfast in my car when I saw what you did. I know that boy's mother. She works 3 jobs trying to make ends meet in their new apartment after her husband passed away. Marcus felt uncomfortable with all the attention. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, Marcus, not everyone would give their only meal away, Mr. Thomas said. I called the news because people need to hear stories like this, stories about real kindness. Another person stepped forward. It was Tommy's mother, Sarah. Her eyes were red from crying. Tommy told me everything last night, Sarah said. He said you let him stay warm in the lobby until school started. He said you were nice to him when he felt scared and alone. Marcus remembered his own childhood. My mom raised me alone too. Sometimes kind strangers made things a little easier. Mr. Thomas cleared his throat. Marcus, I would like to offer you a position as head of security for my restaurant chain. The salary is triple what you make now, with full medical benefits. Marcus stood silent, processing the words. I need someone with your character watching over my businesses, Mr. Thomas continued. Someone who puts others first, even when times are hard. Sarah touched Marcus's arm gently. Tommy hasn't stopped talking about you. He says he wants to be kind like you when he grows up. A tear rolled down Marcus's cheek. He thought about his mother's medical bills, about all the nights he went to bed hungry, but mostly he thought about Tommy sitting alone in the cold. Thank you, Mr. Thomas, Marcus said quietly. I would be honored to accept the position. The reporters raised their cameras, but they weren't just capturing a story about a viral video. They were recording the moment. A simple act of kindness changed multiple lives forever. 1 week into his new job, Marcus sat in his office at Mr. Thomas's main restaurant. The medical insurance had already helped with his mother's treatment, and for the first time in years, he had money saved in his bank account. The phone on his desk rang. It was Sarah, Tommy's mother. Marcus, I hope I'm not bothering you, Sarah said. Tommy keeps asking if he can thank you properly. Doesn't need to thank me, Marcus replied. How are you both doing? Better now. I found a day job closer to home. Tommy doesn't have to wait outside the school anymore. Marcus smiled. That's good to hear. Would you like to join us for dinner tonight? Nothing fancy, just a home-cooked meal, Sarah asked. Tommy made a card for you. Marcus thought about his empty apartment. I would like that very much. That evening, Marcus walked up to their small apartment building. Tommy opened the door before he could knock. Marcus, look, I got new shoes for school, Tommy said, pointing to his feet. And Mom doesn't have to work at night anymore. The apartment was small, but warm. The smell of cooking filled the air. Sarah stood at the stove, stirring a pot of soup. It's not much, Sarah said, but we wanted to share what we have with you. Tommy handed Marcus a handmade card. Inside, in crooked letters, it read, Thank you for being nice to me when I was hungry. They sat down to eat. The soup was simple but delicious. Tommy talked about school, his new friends, and how he shared his lunch with another kid who forgot his. I told him about you, Tommy said, about how sharing food makes people happy. Sarah wiped her eyes quietly. Things were so hard after Tom's father died. We felt so alone. But your kindness, it showed Tommy that good people still exist. Marcus looked at the small family. My father left when I was Tommy's age. Mom worked so hard to raise me right. She taught me that kindness matters more than money. How is your mother now? Sarah asked. The new insurance helped a lot. She starts physical therapy next week, Marcus said. Mr. Thomas even arranged for a better doctor. Tommy tugged at Marcus's sleeve. Will you come visit us again? Marcus looked at Sarah, who nodded warmly. I would love to, Marcus said. Maybe next time I can bring my mother. She makes the best chocolate chip cookies. As they continued talking, Marcus realized something important. His act of kindness hadn't just changed his financial situation. It had given him something even more valuable. A connection with people who understood what it meant to struggle and survive. A month passed. Marcus sat in the hospital waiting room while his mother had her physical therapy session. The new treatment was working well, and she could walk better now. Mr. Thomas walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. I thought you might need this, he said, handing one to Marcus. Thank you, sir. You didn't have to come. Please, call me David, Mr. Thomas said. How is the new job going? Marcus straightened up. Very well. We improved security at 3 locations, and staff turnover is down. I know. The restaurant managers told me morale has improved since you started, Mr. Thomas paused. But that's not why I'm here. He pulled out a folder. I want to start a program for kids like Tommy. Free breakfast for students who arrive early to school. We'll serve it at our restaurant across from your old building. Marcus looked at the proposal. This could help many families. I want you to oversee it, Mr. Thomas said. You understand these children. You see them as people, not just charity cases. Marcus thought about Tommy, about all the other kids who might be sitting alone, hungry and cold. We could also provide part-time jobs for single parents, Marcus suggested. Like Tommy's mom, Sarah. She's good with people. Mr. Thomas nodded. Add it to the proposal. We'll start next month. Marcus's mother wheeled herself into the waiting room, smiling. Mr. Thomas, what a surprise. Please, call me David. I was just discussing a new project with your son. He's doing so well, she said proudly. I always knew his kind heart would lead him to good things. Mr. Thomas stood up. Marcus, take the rest of the day off. Be with your mother. We'll discuss the program details tomorrow. After he left, Marcus's mother took his hand. You know, that day when you gave your lunch away, you were worried about having no food at home. I remember, Marcus said. But you gave it anyway, she squeezed his hand. Just like your father would have done. Marcus looked surprised. You never talk about him. Was like you. Always helping others. He died trying to save a child from a car accident, she said softly. I never told you because it hurt too much. But seeing you now, helping children like Tommy, I see him in you. Marcus hugged his mother tightly. The coffee Mr. Thomas brought sat cooling on the table, forgotten in the moment of shared memories and healing. 3 months later, Marcus stood inside Mr. Thomas's restaurant, across from his old security post. The breakfast program was starting today. Tables were set up with simple but healthy meals: oatmeal, fresh fruit, and milk. Sarah, now the program coordinator, arranged name tags for the staff. The school principal said 30 children might come today. Let's be ready for more, Marcus said. Word spreads fast. Tommy helped set up the napkins and spoons. Can I greet the kids when they come in? Of course, Marcus smiled. You know exactly how they feel. At 6:30 a.m., the first child walked in shyly. Then another. And another. Soon, 15 children sat eating warm breakfast. Their parents looked relieved as they headed to work. My mom works early too, Tommy told a young girl who sat alone. Want to sit with me? Marcus watched as Tommy helped the girl feel comfortable. His mother, now able to walk with a cane, helped serve juice. "This reminds me of the school breakfast program that helped us when you were young," she said to Marcus. Mr. Thomas arrived with more supplies. "Marcus, the other locations want to start this program too." "We should wait a month," Marcus said. "Learn from this one first. Make sure we do it right." A familiar face walked in. It was Lisa from his old building. "Marcus, the security guard who replaced you told me about this. I know 3 families who could use this help." "Send them our way," Sarah said. "We're here every morning." Marcus looked around the room. Children eating. Parents getting a chance to leave for work, knowing their kids were safe and fed. It wasn't charity. It was community. "Remember when you gave me your lunch?" Tommy asked, bringing Marcus back to the present. "Of course I do. Now we get to give lunch to lots of kids," Tommy said proudly. Marcus's mother touched his shoulder gently. "Your father would be so proud of what you've built here." "We all built this," Marcus said, watching Sarah help a young boy with his oatmeal. Sometimes one small act of kindness opens the door for many more. The morning sun streamed through the windows, warming the room filled with children's voices and hope. Marcus realized that his simple decision to share his lunch that cold morning hadn't just changed his life. It had created a ripple effect, touching more lives than he could have imagined. Loved this story? Tap that like button and subscribe to Mystic Tales for more. Let us know how this story made you feel with a single word in the comments.